All right, I'm Janine Shepard. That was Heather Brown who's speaking. We are math content specialists through Illinois State University's Center for Educational Initiatives. Our guest speaker today is Steve Leinwand, and he's going to be talking to us here in just a moment about rethinking homework. So we're very excited to have all of you here today for this very important conversation on how we can make our homework more meaningful.
We are having great luck today. I hit leave meeting instead of confirm. It's like left to right. All right. So thank you so much. Thanks for everybody being patient and still being here. Steve, are you all set? I'm Heather Brown from, did you already introduce us?
Yes, I got that.
Great. And I'm excited to have, did you introduce Steve as well?
Briefly, yes.
All right. Steve has been a speaker with NCTM, NCSM, ASSM, a proud member of all those organizations. His rooms are always so full, you can't even get in when you go to those conferences. So we are really excited to have him. And even if we're all starting a little technology problematic as well as a couple minutes late, I really appreciate him being here as well as everyone else being able to join us. Steve, are you set?
I think so. I've just got one thing I have to do. I don't want to learn more. Don't send any other data. Oh, it's so ridiculous. All right, accept this and powering done. All right. Can you share the screen or do I have to go and do that?
You share the screen. It's just right at the bottom of the page. It's a green button.
All right, so I need to minimize this guy. And then, where am I with the, hold on. Okay. So now I want to share my screen, which is this guy, and share, and then make this guy bigger.
Perfect.
Right? How's that?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's great.
All right, now if only, I got to just sort of up the volume so I can hear people, because this is.
We just lost your volume, Steve. We just
lost it? How about now?
We can hear you now. We can hear you now. Perfect.
Wonderful, and I can hear you. So this is so great. Look at that. So we decided to come down to North Carolina and play Grandma and Grandpa this weekend. In fact, my granddaughter is doing a student presentation at the North Carolina Association of Independent Schools tomorrow. And so I get to take her and watch her do a poster session. And we have internet, of course. I mean, I have internet and cable everywhere I go. And so I took a nap this afternoon after driving 4 hours, and like the internet isn't working. And then fortunately, my stepdaughter has her dermatology office all of about half a block from our condo. And so I raced over here, and then it's like frantic and crazy and switching computers and then getting it on. And I just think that this is perfect. I've solved all the problems. I'm very sorry that we're a little late, but I have something to share with all of you, and that is some thoughts about homework, what we do, what we need to do, and how we can make it a whole lot better. Okay, so if you guys are all set, I'm ready to rock and roll. Here's some background. I mean, it's like, it's really kind of you to say that, the room is always filled. I get bored faster than anyone that I know. I'm always pushing the envelope. I'm always pushing myself. And so I've been in over 1,000 classrooms in the last 10 years, basically since the Common Core came out. Part of my life is coaching and observing and consulting and all those kinds of things. And so I see a problem. I see a problem with the way questions are being asked. I see a problem with the way that assessments aren't being given. I see problems and I go, I wonder about that. And so I tend to ponder it on my way home. I spend a lot of time doing everything but watching movies at 37,000 feet. I read, I catch up, I think about things, I make little notes, I write some of these notes, and then I do some reading. In this case, I did some notes about homework, I did some reading and stuff that Alfie Cohen has said. I write some more notes, and then I either write it up or I speak about it. And so this is like the third time I've given a variation of this particular talk, all based upon my notes and thinking about homework. And then I share it, I stimulate some thought, and here we are. Here we are today with me saying to you, what could possibly be more American than, move this over, right?
I'm listening to what
That's right. This is CPR related. I'll catch you.
What comes next? More American than mom?
Apple pie.
Apple pie, exactly. And math homework. I mean, if you're going to make a joke, you're going to joke about math homework. You're going to talk about how wonderful mom is, how wonderful apple pie is. I mean, you can phrase this a little differently. In fact, what's more inevitable than death? That's right, taxes and math homework. And so, you know, we just know that we are the perpetuators or the doers of this thing called math homework that is the laughing stock and that just gets in the way. And so my serious query, I mean, the question that I ask you to think about, the question that I ask is, why is it that we tend to put tradition? Well, it's the way I was doing it. It's the way that it's done. Why do we put tradition ahead of research and common sense? Why is it that we experience in our own homes, watching our own kids just waste their time on 20 math problems on a stupid worksheet or 1 to 19 odd, when we know that it doesn't make any sense for our own kid, but we go back into our classroom and we do the same thing? And I think the answer is because, I mean, why do we do it? It's because it's what we do most days when it comes to math homework. We ignore the research, we ignore common sense, and we just sort of do it. And so let's be honest. I lay down a gauntlet. I started thinking about this in terms of what an unbelievable waste of time. Not all of homework, but the way in which we spend time in class, at home, doing the homework, going over the homework, assigning the homework, completing it, reviewing it, and you just stop and say, there's got to be a better way. And so you're not convinced? I mean, all I want to do is some math. All I want to do is have you simply sit there and think about that there are 45 million students in the United States in grades 2 through 12. And if they do 30 minutes to do it and 10 minutes to go over it, you're talking about 30 million hours a day. 30 million hours a day is spent on math homework for the 45 million kids in this country, right? Assume 50% isn't wasted, right? And that homework is assigned 140 days a year. I mean, so we don't do it on weekends. We do it basically 4 days a week. We do it for the 30 weeks. And of the, the 40 minutes, only 20 minutes is really wasted. And so 20 minutes is still valuable. Well, that means that you are, or we are, wasting somewhere close to 46 hours a year or 6 8-hour days just wasted. And that's over and beyond the fact that I'm saying 20 minutes is enough to do it. It's the extra over and beyond that is still the equivalent of 6 8 hours a day. And I just sit there and go, think about what we could teach. Think about how much we could accomplish. Think about how I tutor a student for 1 hour, 15 consecutive Tuesdays. 15 hours, and I can do a knockdown, drag-out job with Algebra 1 or with 6th grade. Well, 6 8-hour days, it's like I could do a whole extra 2 units. There's so much time that I could save. And so when we talk about the waste and we talk about what goes on, I just think that it's important for all of us to sort of hold up some mirrors. I mean, look at what we do, right? We spend precious minutes assigning homework and expecting our students to copy the assignment down. Every one of you knows that. We put it on the board or we read it out loud, and if we read it, half the kids don't get it right, so we put it on the board, we tell them to look at it, we put it down, we hand it out in some way, and it's just time with, wait a second, can you say it again? No, wait a second, I didn't hear it. Wait, I don't understand, is that at page 216 or is that page 218? I can't read your handwriting. You know that we expect students to spend between 30 and 45 minutes, depending on their grade, right? Each school night except Friday doing homework. And what is that homework? It's usually just regurgitating procedures and mimicking from notes and text. You know that we have this mindset that practice makes you better, practice makes you stronger. And so we do 15 minutes of long division problems, when if you knew how to do it, the homework is a waste of time. If you don't know how to do it, the homework is a waste of time, and we'll come back to that. You know that we spend somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes going over the homework in class, which is, deadly. I'm in some classes where there's only 47 minutes. And you know that when you spend 15 minutes going over homework, and I mean, the kids love it. I have another question. Oh, good, we'll never get to what we have to do today. They don't have to think. They get further behind. They're all very happy with that. And so I don't think that I'm being uncritical when I show you that these are the math homework fractions. I still see students walking into classrooms where it says periods 1, 3, and 4, or math homework today, page 247, 1 to 19 odd. Then we go back to the previous lesson and we do 2 to 20 even, because of course the answer is not in the book. I don't understand why we would ever give homework assignments where the answers aren't in the back of the book, because I want kids to check their homework. I want them to know they got it right. I want to see their work. And so I want answers to every problem to be there, and I want kids to check on it. And then I finally do some problem solving, but it's on stuff that we did 3 days ago on page 239. And you sit there and go, where is any of the thinking? Where's any of the reasoning? Where is anything other than just skill on how we go about homework? And so I asked the question, and for what real value? And then I want you to look at what they do. I mean, when you sit there and watch kids at home, when you watch kids in class, right? Every one of us knows, they copy their homework from friends because I don't have time for it. And it's meaningless anyway. Ask your kids how many copy, and if they're honest, it's amazing how many hands will go up. And it doesn't have any correlation with their grades. You can't say, well, that's why you're doing poorly, you copy your homework, right? They do their homework in groups. We know that I want them to work collaboratively, right? They work in groups, they wisely allocate the exercises. That's what the Asian American kids do. That's what Uri Treisman's research showed. The study circles that his Asian American kids did, that his African American students were taught to do by Uri, that made such a difference. When we do it in groups, we're doing all of the positive things that society needs, but that means that of the 15 problems, each kid's only doing 4. And yet they're talking about it and they're getting feedback on their homework, right? Look what they do. They use homework apps to deliver the answers, right? You know how much homework is done in your class with Alexa and with Echo? I mean, ask your kids. Everywhere I go, I say to the kids, so how many of you use Alexa? And they look around, and then 2 hands go up, and then 4 hands go up. And I go, it's okay. I mean, every normal kid does it with that. I said, what are you losing? And they go, we don't have the time for it, or it's just easy. If in fact Alexa can get the answer, the question is, why are we assigning that? Why are we asking kids to practice things that a machine can do so much better when we know we're being asked to do reasoning and problem solving and explanation and communication? And so rarely does homework do that. You know how many kids regularly blow it off? I mean, I ask you, other than your honors class, what percentage of kids actually take out their homework when you take out your homework? How many of you regularly recognize that when you go, okay, number 1, 18, number 2, the square root of 4, number 3, 7.9, and the kids are crossing out 7.8 and making it 7.9? It's just an answer getting process. You know that that homework tends to engender all kinds of fights at home. It alienates parents. It puts parents and kids in adversary. Do your math homework. Do your math homework already. Come on, do your math homework, right? It builds all kinds of tension between home and school, where it's like no one screams and yells about the writing or the reading the kids have to do. Social studies, so they have to read 6 pages and then write some notes or answer 3 questions. It's very different than the practice of math, right? Right? They make a slew of mistakes, and all we do is attend to the answers and the correct procedures. We don't really use homework to do the kind of teaching. We don't treat homework as something formative that we have to react to in many cases. It reinforces the I'm dumb, right? The screenshots that get uploaded to Facebook about, I'm dumb, I can't do math. Why? Because I can't do it fast enough. It exacerbates class cutting in high school, right? And it changes their perception of math. I mean, most important of all, well, you only have to spend 20 minutes on it. Well, wait a second, but I only got the first 2 problems done in 20 minutes. And so you know that homework has a bad habit of reinforcing speed and accuracy in a world where our job is to have kids solve problems and reason about things and communicate their answers. And so, with that utter, total, complete bombardment to get you to say, well, Steve, you're overstating it. I'll grant you, I'm overstating it to some degree. So go back and look at these lists. Go back and look at this list and stop and say, yeah, I do that, I do that, I don't do that, I don't do that, I do that. That's great. So let's think about what you do on these lists and what you know the kids are doing and not doing on these lists, because look at what we know. I think that if we start to say, how do we respond to all that? What ideas do I have to share with you about shifting some of the homework procedures? How do I acknowledge that I think every kid from 2nd grade on should be doing 20 minutes of math every single night, because it's an opportunity to extend schooling, opportunity to extend the work that we do in school? I say to you, every one of you knows that distributed practice is far more effective than clumped practice. If I taught something today and I give homework tonight and then on Monday night and never again on that skill, I know that it's lost. I know that it's forgotten. I know that that kind of clumped practice, and then we move on to the next skill and on to the next skill, is nowhere near as powerful as the notion of cumulative review, of distributed practice. And so today I did problems involving estimating quotients. Wow. No calculators, guys. Show me your work for estimating these quotients. And I gave kids 3 problems on that tonight. And then I give them 2 problems on that on Monday night. And then on Thursday night, there's 1. And a week from now, there's another one on Wednesday night. In other words, that notion of distributed practice. We end up having to do less review. We are always keeping skills up to date. And so that's one of the things that we know that I think we can build in to homework, as I'll show you. I mean, there it is. It just says that so much of what's taught today is lost by next week or 10 minutes after the test. Right? We know that it's placed in short-term memory. It's not based on understanding. We don't review it systemically and systematically over time. And so we have a gap in what kids are really retaining, what kids are putting into long-term memory, right? And I think that we know that, whereas homework, when we actually look at it, tends to be a chance to practice skills. Every one of us is held responsible for preparing kids for tests that are balanced. A balanced program, a rigorous program, involves skills, concepts, and applications. And so I ask, where are the applications on our homework? Where are the kids explaining? Where are the kids showing all their work? Where are the kids doing more than simply putting an answer on a piece of paper? And I think that that a math program needs to address the Common Core standards for mathematical practices. And in fact, where is there anything except precision? Where are kids solving problems? Where are kids reasoning quantitatively and abstractly? Where are kids modeling with mathematics? And so if those are valued, shouldn't they also be valued on our homework? And so given all of that, we know that for students, homework is often frustrating when it's either so repetitious or it just doesn't make any sense, or they're not ready for it. We know that it reduces time for other far more rewarding activities. We know how many kids are told you can't do this, you can't watch television, you can't play your video games until you finish your math homework. I mean, it's like, we're set up in so many ways that we're the enemy, we're the villain. It reduces interest in learning when most of the work is so mind-numbing. And all I ask you to do is to watch kids in the cafeteria, watch kids before school, watch kids at home, watch them doing their math homework, and watch them using calculators when they're not supposed to use calculators. Watch when they sit there and they check with someone else and they just copy things down. Right? We also know that as parents, right, that sense of nagging and feeling inadequate, of playing the enforcer, about worrying how much to help our students, is really a serious problem. And I guess all I can tell you is that this is not telling other people what to do. In 1998, I am a single parent. I've got 2 boys. and my younger kid is in 7th grade. What's life like? What's life is like as a single parent is that the kids are in after-school programs. I pick them up about 5 o'clock. We talk about the day. I'm either cooking from a microwave at home because that was back before I really knew how to cook. And so we go out most nights. The best chance we had to stay a tight-knit family was dinners in Chinese restaurants and at McDonald's and at other places all around. And so that means we get home about 7 o'clock. And at 7 o'clock, it's homework time. And so Ethan would do his reading language arts first because I believe that's more important than anything else. And it's now 7:45. Bedtime is 8:15. And so now he's going to start doing his math homework. And so I would look at his math thing and I'd simply circle 4 of the 22 problems. And I'd say, you do those 4 problems. You get them right, you're done. And I'll write a note to the teacher. I mean, am I being subversive? Yes. Am I cheating? I don't know. Am I being a bad parent? Probably. But you know, this worked for 2 weeks. The teacher went along with it. Ethan did his 4 problems until the stupid kid, who's now 36, and still says, well, Dad, I don't play by the rules just like you don't. He showed his friends that he wasn't doing any more than 4 problems in the note that his father was writing to the teacher. And at that point, the teacher called and said, sorry, your son screwed up and blew it. But I mean, think about the position that we put parents in when it comes to it's 8:15 and you have to then do the math homework. And so I love this. I love this. Alfie Kohn writes, consider the results of the 2000 math exam. 4th graders who did no homework got roughly the same score as those who did 30 minutes a night. Remarkably, this is NAEP data. This is self-report on how many minutes you spend doing homework. Remarkably, the scores then decline for those that did 45. Well, that doesn't make, that's not really surprising, right? I mean, if you did 45, it means that you're not very quick with it. It means you make all kinds of mistakes, you take forever, and you haven't really learned anything. The more time ends up being a negative. And then it declined again for those who did an hour. In 8th grade, the scores were higher for those that did between 15 and 45 a night than for those who did no homework, right? Were higher for those 15 to 40, but the results were worse if you did an hour's worth of homework. I mean, that's simply the data. And worse still for those that did more than an hour. Only in high school do we find that, you know what? Lo and behold, students were about the same when they did 15 minutes or more than an hour. But again, we know that we've got tons and tons of research that says it doesn't make much difference. And so in summary, there's no evidence that homework has a positive impact on student achievement in grades K-8, and there's only a slight impact of student achievement in 9-12, and we know that the more time they spend, the poorer they tend to do for any number of reasons. And if that is the case, then ladies and gentlemen, not bad. I have 6 things I'd like to talk about. I'd like you to think about. And then we'll open it up to questions and anything else that's on your mind. Okay? I mean, what's the purpose? What's a reasonable number of tasks? How much time should we give kids? How do we communicate the assignment? How do we check, not grade, not correct? And how do we give kids feedback in meaningful kinds of ways? And so I just think that if we establish all these routines in our class, right? The purpose of math homework is simply to do a small amount of independent practice. It's important that you do it by yourself. It's important that you do your homework and say to yourself, oh, cool, this is easy, I understand it. Or, oh my goodness, I don't understand it, I need to get help from somebody, right? So it's independent practice on a new skill or a concept. Not just a skill, but also do you understand? Can you explain what this is? It means that homework is, so what makes 2/3 a fraction? We don't assign those kinds of tests or homework questions, right? We know that it's like, think about that. I want parents to go crazy. I want them to go Google what is a fraction. That's helping their kids in all kinds of ways, right? It's a small amount of independent practice on previously taught content. That's right, I'm going to use homework to do some cumulative review, right? And on some of those practices. Now, again, the practices that are important to me are the modeling, the reasoning, the the reasoning, the modeling, and the solving problems that are so important, right? What's the purpose? It's, as we said, to extend classroom time beyond just mathematics class, but some reasonable amount of time. It's to provide an opportunity for students to feel like they've actually learned something. That's what a formative assessment is. We all know that homework is supposed to be formative. That's why I don't grade it. How ridiculous would it be to grade something that is not a summative assessment, right? So if those are my purposes, along with, it's reflective. It's a chance to draw on metacognition, right? It's a chance to answer the question, what did you learn today? Did you actually learn it? What an amazing idea. It's not about go practice. It's about, did you learn it? Can you do it? Do you understand it? Right? The purpose of math is to develop ownership of their own learning. That we've done all this stuff in class. You've worked in a group. You've worked as a whole class. Now, for these few problems, can you go and do it independently? And so I think playing off this notion of thinking that our purpose is a small amount of independent practice that extends the classroom time, that the focus is helping kids make sense of what they know and what they don't know, that it's an opportunity to show their thinking and the difference. What is that? Opportunity to show their thinking, and I have no idea what the difference means. How did I leave that in there? Wonderful. There we go. This is perfect. Now's the perfect time to remind you that it is impossible to learn math without making mistakes. It is impossible to teach a math class without making 2 mistakes in a 47-minute period. First of all, you make a computational error on the board because you're thinking 3 steps ahead. It's just what we always do. 2, you call on Kyle when calling on Kyle was a serious strategic error. 2 errors. If I'm in the room, you're going to make a 3rd error because you get nervous. If you're using technology, like today, you're going to make a 4th error because it's impossible to press buttons and not make another error. I used to purposely build errors into my slides or into my presentations, and then I realized that was really stupid because they were fake. I don't have to worry about it. I make errors in every presentation, in every class I ever teach. And so there it is. There's the error back there on this crazy bullet, but it's an opportunity to show their thinking, right? And it's preparation for what's coming. We don't often think about homework as a chance to throw in 2 diagnostic or are you ready kinds of questions. And so when I step back and say, right, here's where we can do more than just regurgitation. Here's where I have a frame for what makes sense, then look what emerges. I'm in schools that are now finally doing what I call 2-4-2 homework policies. I just think that no kid should ever be given more than 8 problems a night. I would like you to think about, there are 2 problems on the new skill. That's it. You know with your own children, you know that if a kid can do 2 problems, it's usually more than enough to determine understanding, and it avoids all of the practicing mistakes that is then so hard to unlearn them. If kids make mistakes and make mistakes and make mistakes, but they don't realize they're making mistakes, it's almost impossible to undo those mistakes. They divide, then they multiply, and they should be doing the other way, whatever it is. And so I give you 2 problems that follow up on the day's lesson that simply says, bingo, great, good. You got that, you understand, I'm happy, you're happy, everything is cool. And then, why don't we give kids 4 cumulative review problems every single night? Why isn't that we don't build in something from yesterday, something from last week, something from last month, and perhaps something that's a diagnostic readiness for the next lesson, all of which honor what we say about distributed practice. Why is it that we don't recognize that homework is a chance to stay up to speed, stay on top of all of these skills? And so the process of the scavenger hunt, of saying homework is, by the way, I don't think many of you are teaching out of a textbook regularly in a way that requires the kids to have the textbook in class. So I just say, take that textbook that weighs between 5 and 10 pounds, send it home on the first day. That textbook is a homework guide. It's a homework resource. And so the homework is, okay, on page 214, I need you to do problems 7 and 19. Those are the 2 on today's new skill. And then for distributed practice, you're doing problem number 6 on page 201. You're doing problem number 2 on another page. And so it's a scavenger hunt. You go find them, you have them, and then I think that you know that the way in which we get out of the practice, 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 skill, skill, skill is every single night there are 2 problems that require kids to show their work, to provide an explanation, to use English, to support the problem solving and the reasoning, to provide a justification. Those are the ones that I'm going to spend more time on back in class when I have limited time to go over the homework. So stop and think about the only thing you're losing is 8 opportunities to do the new skill when in most cases you know that it's mastered after 2 and there's no benefit, there's no gain when you move on and try and do 10 problems. And in exchange, I'm building in 2 problems that have parents going, whoa, look at this great program. My kid's doing all kinds of things I never did before. Look at how they have to write all this stuff out. Look at how they have to think. Look at how they're being prepared. Look at how they're actually doing these standards. And then I have the cumulative review because we know how important it is and we know how much is forgotten. And so before I get to that, I mean, what that says is I'm going to, just read this slide, but after beginning mathematics the next day, teachers can easily post the answers to these 8 exercises or problems on the whiteboard and provide students with 5 minutes to review their work in pairs or triads. Why are we going over homework as reading answers, which I saw 2 weeks ago? I watched kids' faces as, okay, take out your homework. And there were 15 answers read, and the kids were simply going check, X, X, check, check, X, X, check, and that was it, hand it in. I don't understand how anyone believes that there's any learning going on in those conditions. And so in this case, the kids have got 5 minutes to work in pairs or in triads with particular attention to the last 2 problems. Most times, there's no, all right, everything, we're all set? No, we didn't understand the first of the 2 problems we had to show the work. I take a kid's paper, I put it on the document camera because I do not have time for the kids to write all that stuff out. 5:30. Good. That's my wife sneaking in the back, right, with a little note that says, when are you done? Because we got to take my granddaughter out for dinner, but everything is perfect. All right, it's great. So classroom policy can then be that correct work for any problems that are still causing trouble can easily be displayed with the document camera, discussed before the homework is collected, only to be recorded as completed. That's what I care about, that it's completed, it's done. And so I urge you to think about, and then, in a few minutes, ask me questions about, fine. You say to me, you have a block schedule. You only meet every other day, right? I say, fine, then give kids 3 problems instead of 2. That's fine. I mean, am I going to scream if the kids get 10 problems? No. Okay. But if you're going to, and if you give 3 cumulative review rather than 4, I don't care about that stuff. But if there's no cumulative review on the homework, if there are no problems and show your work and explain and justify, then I think that becomes problematic. And I think that that homework without feedback, any kind of learning without feedback, we talk about play the piano. Practice, practice, practice. That's like math homework. No, in fact, when we play the piano, we don't do our scales and all of that, practice stuff until we played the pieces. And we know I play the Für Elise Beethoven piece and I realize my fingers aren't working right. I realize that I can't get my left hand and right hand together. That's when I do a whole series of exercises and scales and skills. The same thing with soccer. Can you imagine if all we did was tell kids, today we're going to do left foot, right foot, left foot kick, left foot, right foot kick. I mean, and that's all they're going to do for the next hour and then throw the ball over your head. We practice soccer after we played the game. We play soccer, we practice the soccer. I think the same thing has to happen with math, that we have to do some problems, we have to do the math, and then we do systematic and sensible kinds of practice in those ways. Some additional options, right? I see people email the homework to kids. I see homework posted on a class Twitter account. I don't see why any kid should ever say, I forgot the assignment. I didn't find it. The book is sitting at home, right? The homework goes home. I mean, the homework comes out of that textbook. And so all I'd like to do now is just have you pause and think for a second, because you don't have a partner, right? What other options do you have to improve the value of homework? Okay, I need to just stop, let you catch your breath. I go a mile an hour. And so there's that option. I'm just going to show you that I've got a whole bunch of alternatives that are coming up. Before I get to that, I'd like you to think about, what did that stimulate? What are you doing?
And feel free to use the chat window if you want to throw some ideas in there for discussions. They're right there.
You can turn your mic off and jump in. I can't see the chat window, so somebody can read things that people have written.
No one's written anything yet.
Okay.
But yes,
So,
certainly turn your mic off or mic on if you want to say something too. Go ahead.
I see John and Clover and Dave.
They're thinking.
Does the silence mean that you're doing some very traditional things and you don't want to talk about the other things, or what?
I had a question. I know you had this, you were talking about the 242.
Yes.
And then the next day you go back and show the answers, but I was under the impression that all the homework assigned questions would have answers in the back of the book.
Ah, cool. So yes, ideally that's the case, but I also hope that they check them. I don't expect them all to, but I put them up there and the kids are saying, well, I already fixed it, I already changed it. True. But when you have the two problems, right, that are there, the answers are more complicated than that. But more importantly, what happens when they don't know how to get that answer? Okay, so they know what the answer is, but it's a matter of, do you understand where it came from, is how that would work. Is that helpful? Good.
And I do have a couple comments in the chat now. Pat and
Good.
Joel said, by providing homework that's connected to life. Lisa
Yes.
said, one homework assignment per week covering key topics, mostly working problems in class rather than homework. And Hanada said, Google Classroom used for homework assignments.
Great. Those are wonderful ideas and great ways to do it. Homework in real life, I think that, homework assignments like ask your parents what math they did today. I say to kids, the gas pump, the bank, the restaurant, what math do we do when we go to the restaurant? What math do we do at the gas pump? That gas pump with the miles per gallon and the dollars per gallon and the total amount is just, it's just amazing how much math is sitting there.
And then a couple more were, again, connect the two problem solving questions to real world, such as science, social studies, or personal problems.
Great.
Lane said, I think one of the most important things I can teach my students is to reach for understanding. So I encourage them to email me questions. Pat and Joel said, math talk, so students can explain their thought process to each other or the class.
That's really great. So in other words, what we're recognizing is what we care about is extending the class and doing more than just getting answers. And all of those things are entirely appropriate. Those two problems, I mean, our textbooks now regularly have the problems at the end linked to science or linked to social studies. There are ways to do that. There are all kinds of resources. Many teachers I know go and use the Engage New York to supplement some of what they do. And they may not be teaching out of Engage New York, but they go to those exercises and application problems that are there. People in middle school have been using the connected math application problems. So there's a range of places to go and find some of those things. Perfect. Makes sense. All right.
A couple more, or you want to keep going?
I want to keep going. Okay, that's awesome. And so here we have some alternatives for you to think about. And so I just have this long list. When I've asked people what they do, things to think about. Some teachers assign the homework over more than one night, so that you have a week to do this assignment, and it's a little longer, right? But that is another way to do it, so it isn't every single day. Ask them to process the problems. That is, questions about the context and the math, and sometimes not even worry about the answer. It's like, so questions like, what is the operation and why is that the operation? Right? I mean, why does the rule work? There are so many questions like that that can be asked as one of the problems. Homework is to do the setup, not the do. That's a direct quote from somebody, and I don't know what that means either. Good. Often putting the homework up and having a gallery walk, having the kids look at each other's. The whole idea of providing answers in different ways, having the answers posted, having the answers put on a document camera, having the answers read. Some people have said to me during the turn and talk, the kids anonymously identify the problems that they need help with. Obviously within some limits, but an opportunity for the kids to sort of write down on a piece of paper the two problems that they really need help with in some way or other. Choose the ones that are just right. That is the Goldilocks one, not the ones that are too easy, not the ones that are too hard. And then send them home and ask them to classify the tasks, the difficulty, the solution method used, the structure. In other words, all we're saying is people are finding ways to make the homework more than just getting answers to mindless problems, but using homework to go beyond that in all of these different kinds of ways. And so in summary, all I would like to do is to ask you to raise in your own heads the issues of why are we doing homework? What is appropriate homework? And how can we best assign it and go over it? What I'm hopeful for is that you'll actually give some thought to the 242 model for all the ways in which it responds to the problems that we face and the way in which there's very, very little penalty or cost to that. Never assign more than 20 minutes of homework. I mean, if you can do it in 10, it means the kids can do it in 20. It's generally a pretty good rule of thumb, right? We balance skills, concepts, and applications in every single assignment. I look at that. I mean, that's what my lesson needs to do. That's what my tests need to do. The best unit assessments have skills and then conceptual understanding and then applications. And shouldn't our homework also reflect the fact that there are these three critical dimensions of mathematics and of a balanced program, right? I only check that homework was completed. I never correct it. I never provide a grade. It is all about the feedback that kids get, which is the point that I did not make when I was talking about practice and piano practice and music practice and soccer. The key is that the skills come after you have been engaged in the game, and the understanding that the practice is something that supports getting better in ways that homework tends to just be drudgery. We use student-centered strategies to quickly review all the homework in different ways, right? We translate these problems into a written policy for K-12 math homework, and so that every school or every district has a policy for what we do and what we don't do. And so those are my ideas about homework. I can tell you that all of these slides are on my website. You simply, I can do this, I can do this. We can make this really easy. Oh, great. So why is it that at this point I can't type on here? All right, I don't know why I can't type on here, and so I'm not even going to try, but I know where to go, right? I can go right back up here and tell you that, there it is. My website is www.steveleinwand.com. I'll leave that there. Under presentations, there's a presentation about homework. There are a series of slides there so that you can pick and choose. It is against my religion to PDF my slides because I want people to own them. I want people to be able to play with them and use them in whatever way is possible. My email address sits there. I spend somewhere close to an hour a day responding to email. The nice thing about being 70 and working, you know, when I feel like working and how I feel like working is I believe that I owe the world whatever I can pay and pay back. And so I spend a lot of time responding to email and answering questions from people I have no idea who they are. And so at that moment, all I would like to do is say, hopefully, I have stimulated some questions, and great. Bingo. How can I help you?
So again, here, feel free if you want to write something in the chat window, or if you want to just unmute and ask Steve directly, that is definitely appropriate. or as Steve gave you his email address, you can email him directly. So we'll just hold the line for a couple minutes if you are writing or want to talk. Some of the comments we missed before were encouraging the value in failure. Students should come in and discuss their errors just like their correct answer.
Oh, the whole notion of mistakes. I've had the pleasure of just reading Joe Bowler's new book called Limitless Mind. And it goes so much beyond just mathematics. But there's 6 keys to building brain power. One of them is, as you would well expect, Joe's whole discussion of neuroplasticity, the fact that the mind is plastic, and then we've got all this research that says that there is not a fixed mind, and that we need a growth mindset that is supported by activities that, in fact, grow our mind. And so she has a whole chapter on struggle. If we don't struggle, we don't build the neural connections. The other piece that's so powerful is mistakes. We are so crazy in math about no, wrong, who has it right, no, wrong, right? When in fact, all of us learn more from our mistakes than we do from our right answers. I want to honor mistakes. I want to laugh about mistakes. I want to compliment mistakes. I want to tell kids that's the second most common mistake any kid ever makes when they do this. And they all want to know, what's the most common one? I go, funny you should ask. What do you think is the most common one? And they know, they come up with it. Oh yeah, well, you forget to do this, or you do it this way, and whatever it is. So I think that we need to be clear that right answers, in fact, answers, often wrong answers, are the place where good teaching starts. That it's what we do with how did you do it? Who did it differently? Who did it differently than that? How did you picture it? How did you picture it? And again, homework is another chance for us to say to kids, show me a representation and show me a number sentence. Then solve the number sentence. In other words, it's not just go solve the problem in one way, but it's always using representations. In other words, I'm trying to use homework in the same way I use number talks, in the same way that I plan the chunks of my lesson, so that there are plenty of opportunities for us to do that natural, sensible, doable differentiation that to me is a simple matter of recognizing that we honor mistakes because you learn from mistakes. We expect kids to struggle and not get answers immediately because that's how we grow the brain. And we differentiate by recognizing that there are 27 brains in the class, which means that the math is being done in 5 or 6 different ways and being pictured in 4 or 5 different ways. And if we are not forever saying, show me your whiteboard, show me another whiteboard. Who has a different picture? How are these 2 pictures the same? How does this bar model look like this double number line? How is it that this bar model looks like this picture? How is it that we have multiplication done as an array and here we have it done as a scale factor? So those are the key things that are so valuable. And why would we take homework, which is this additional 20 minutes, and not incorporate all of the same techniques? What else?
Steve, a lot of comments saying thank you for your time, very thought-provoking. One question was, what would you tell a parent who wants extra or more traditional homework for the child?
Fine.
Parent unsatisfied with me not giving them enough.
Great. So I say to the parent, perfect. I respect that. So you go online to Engage New York, and you see that, or you go to Learn Zillion and you go and do the problems that are sitting attached to that. They tend to be more problems than just mindless practice. And you recognize that what we need is kids who are understanding, do I multiply or do I divide? Why do I multiply? Why do I divide? Why could I do either way? And why am I not adding in this situation? And then go and show me a different way that you are able to find that product. That's what I tell parents, that's the flexibility of thought that is what society rewards and so desperately needs today. And I say that if you really want more practice, there's the book. You can give your kid more problems if they really love it. If it's punishment, you're only killing off your kid's desire to learn anything. So that's the way I say to parents. No one can stop you from doing those things, but I mean, your job as a parent, in my way of thinking, all the workshops I do with parents, is all about making math commonplace. I want parents to do the math at the restaurant, at McDonald's. I want them to figure out about how much will it cost. I want to get in the car and say, okay, we're going out for pizza tonight. Will $40 do it? And the kids go, oh yeah, plenty, right? And when they find out that it actually is $50, it's like, how did we misestimate? What did we do wrong? I want kids to be doing mathematics at the gas pump and at the bank. I want them to know what a deposit is. I want them to forever be dealing with what's the tax and how much will it cost? What do you need? What if I gave you $100, what would you buy? Those are the kinds of things that make math commonplace. And that's far more important than having parents teach kids the one right way to do subtraction in a world where almost no one does the standard algorithm.
Great. Most of the other comments, again, are thank yous and telling how they're going to try to use either the 242 plan or another plan.
Wonderful.
So I'm going to take this time to really say thanks, Steve. I know this was rushed for you.
No, this worked. I'm really pleased. And now I can't believe that it got screwed up. Now my biggest problem is, what do I have to do to get the damn internet to work back at my condo or my townhouse or whatever, which is weird because this afternoon, I knew it worked. I mean, I was online this afternoon. And I'll get it all fixed.
Yeah.
Heather, thank you so much for asking me to do this. I'm really pleased that this had value. And have a great school year.
Thank you. And I will ask our participants before you leave, we did just post the brief post survey that we're required to track our impact. So if you have the opportunity, that would be great. That will give us more opportunity to share things like this. And again, thank you so much, Steve. So many